Okay, hi everyone. Today for your asynchronous part of your ARP, we are looking at essays. Okay, so remember I told you your WA2 onwards, we'll start to include essays. Okay, you have already done this in Sec 3. Now we're going to go to the full skill. Okay, so now since you're free period now, you might as well use it to finish up so that you can go back earlier later. Okay, so in order for you to go back at 4 p.m. when we meet for face-to-face lessons at 3 p.m. later, at the end of it, I will check your work. If you have completed the handout and essay of good quality, then I'll release you at 4 o'clock. Okay? If not, you will stay with the AMF students until 5 o'clock to finish out your work. Okay? So just a quick recap. In this syllabus, there's only one essay question for the whole paper, and that's worth 6 marks. Okay, now essay questions is also known as open-ended questions to our examiners in Cambridge. Okay, one of the reasons why there's such a question is because it's to get us to familiarize with organizing our own arguments, how to frame it, how to explain it properly, how to back it up with example, how to evaluate different factors. Okay, and most importantly, it allows a variety of answers to show to show what we know instead of what we don't know. Okay, what do I mean by that? I will give you an example later. Okay, now usually they give you a statement, ask you do you agree or how far is it true, and ask you to explain with examples, and that is worth 6 marks. All right, now what's the requirements? Let me do a quick recap with you. Now for essays, we are not like structured questions where we mark by point. We mark by levels, which is similar to SS. So we don't care what points you give us, as long as you meet these criteria. You will get the full marks. You will get the marks accordingly. You get the levels accordingly. Okay, even though you and your friend can write about different factors, as long as it answers the question and fulfill this criteria, you all can actually get the same levels and same marks. Okay, now if you own your first thing you must do, you must give me details about the factors and describe it. Okay, doing this will keep you at L1. Doing this will keep you at L1 2 marks, maximum 2 marks. So you can give me 10-page answers. If you haven't explained, it's only a maximum of 2 marks. Okay, now if you're able to explain and link it back to the question and make sure you explain the site they give you first, you start to get L2 3 marks. Okay, you start to get L2 3 marks. And if you're able to support it, all right, and if you're able to support it with specific examples, okay, specific place names or statistics, is also L2 3 marks. All right, and if you're able to ensure that you explain and argue about both sides, both the agree and disagree side, then you will be able to get the full L2 marks, which is 4 marks, or sometimes L3 5 marks. Okay, now how to get L3 6 marks? You must do a summary, a quick summary, a few line summary, a conclusion of both sides. Okay, there is no need for you to evaluate and weigh, all right, but for N levels, but we are recommending you do that because number one, it shortens your conclusion. Number two, it ensures that your answer is of a higher quality than the rest of Singapore. Okay, so it will help you ensure that you get your A. Okay, so what do we mean by all these requirements? Let's look at it through page 2, a model essay. Okay, so the first thing you do when you see essays is not to write, but to analyze the question first. Okay, so how do you analyze? Look out for what to write in the agree, what factor to write in the agree side, what factor to write in the disagree side, and look out for the question, what do you talk about in the explanation, and think about what conclusion logic you will use to weigh. Now the conclusion logic need not come in because if you haven't explained both sides well, you haven't hit L2 full marks, the L3 is useless. Okay, so let's analyze this first. The statement is ground shaking devastates nature systems more than liquefaction. How far do you agree with the statement? Using evidence, explain your answer. Okay, so if you agree, that means you must talk about ground shaking, how it devastates nature system. Okay, so put this into your handout as well. Okay, and then disagree side will be liquefaction. Okay, because you disagree because liquefaction actually you feel that it devastates more. Okay, so in your second paragraph you must talk about how liquefaction devastates. Okay, so these are the two sides we are talking about. Okay, you must always talk about the given side, the agree side first. That is the requirement from Cambridge because it shows that you're able to be informed and look at different points of view before you conclude. Okay, and you should be able to deal with what is given to you first. Okay, what to talk about in explanation? Explanation, they ask you which one devastates nature systems more. Okay, so I need to talk about how it devastates nature system. So remember I told you a good explanation should not be a direct copy of the question. So you must unpack what does this mean. Okay, so devastates means destroy. Okay, nature systems, what are the nature systems you know? Maybe ecosystems. So you must talk about how it then leads to a destruction of ecosystem. Okay, what are the conclusion logic we can use to compare both sides to decide which side we agree with? You can talk about scale, which one has a larger scale impact, that's why it's more important or devastates more. Okay, another common logic is causation, which means A, for example, if A leads to B, then A is more important. Okay, because without A, B cannot happen. Alright, as for scale, you can conclude A affects a bigger scale or impacts a larger scale than B. If you can tell me what scale, even better. Therefore, A is more important or whatever, based on the question. Okay, so A devastates nature system more. Okay, or you can talk about, instead of geographical scale, you can talk about long term versus short term also. Okay, so let's take a look at this essay, model essay, and then it shows you what we mean by that. Okay, so you can see the first side is the agree side. The first side is the agree side. Okay, they talk about ground shaking. All right, and then you look at the second paragraph, is the disagree side, where they talk about liquefaction. Okay, and then the last one will be your conclusion. Okay, your focus will be the first two first. All right, so what did they do first? First thing, they actually give a range of points, usually about 3 to 4 points about what is ground shaking. So they define it first. Ground shaking is shaking when caused by seismic. When it ground shakes, it can weaken and rupture. It can uproot trees. It can rupture oil leaks. Okay, so this is the description of what is ground shaking and what it can do. So it's only start at L1 right now. Okay, how do I move it to L2? I must explain back to the question. I must link it back to devastate nature systems. So I must show how it destroy ecosystems. Okay, so they say that this pollution can kill many species. Okay, and devastates nature because it results in large areas of habitats being destroyed, which is the destruction of ecosystems that the habitats support. Okay, so this is the explanation. Link back to the question, devastating nature system because it destroys ecosystem. How does it destroy ecosystem? The steps are shown here. Okay, so at this stage is L2 already. Did it give example to hit a higher L2? Okay, so it gives example of Christchurch, New Zealand, how it destroys a lot of trees and its habitats. Okay, so since it gave examples, this one is already L2 already. Okay, can it get L2 for? Let's move on to the next paragraph. Liquefaction. Liquefaction, did it give details how is it caused by earthquake, how it happens, and what will happen when it happens. Okay, and then what has it got to do with this one hasn't improved the L2 score yet. How does it link back to the question? Okay, it devastates nature system. Why? Because it destroys habitats and then destroys the ecosystem. So explain both sides. L2 4 already. Okay, did it give examples? Yes, it gave examples of Christchurch. Again, there's a typo here. It should be in the 2010 earthquakes. Okay, so as of this stage, it's already L2 4 because two sides have been explained, and in some cases L3 5. Okay, so conclusion, can it get the full marks? They say it's largely agree because they go by scale. Ground shaking devastates at a larger scale than liquefaction. Okay, so because it devastates anywhere, so explain what do you mean by larger scale. You can see the conclusion doesn't need to be too long. Okay, so it can devastate any nature system on land, whereas liquefaction can only occur if the ground conditions allows. Okay, now why can it be so vague? Because it already talked about what are the ground conditions in the paragraph. Okay, that it needs all this. Alright, so when they say ground condition allows, the people really understood what it means because you've talked about it already. Okay, so because this one had tried to compare both sides and to make a stand, then you get L36. Okay, so I hope through this model you have a better idea of how to write your essay. Alright, now let's go on to page 3. Okay, I want you to look at these 3 questions. Pause this video and look at these 3 questions. I want you to analyze the question before we look at whether your analysis is correct. Because remember, I told you, if analysis is wrong, it's hard for you to write a good essay. Okay, so pause the video for 5 minutes to complete your choice before you unpause. Page 3, then unpause. Okay, so I'll leave it to you to pause the video now. Okay, I assume you're done. Let me go through with you. Okay, so first one, social consequence of volcanic eruptions is more important than economic consequence. To what extent is this true? Use evidence to explain your answer. So the true side is, the given side is social consequence. Okay, then the other side will be economic consequence. What to talk about in the explanation? Whether is it more important or not. Okay, consequence of what? Volcanic eruption. Sorry, I missed this out in the question. Okay, so more important. How do you know if something is more important? Does it affect more people? Okay, or does it affect a longer term? Okay, so possible things you can talk about scale. Since you're talking about, is it geographical scale or time scale? Okay, or you can use causation also. Is one needed for the other to happen? Okay, this is one thing that you can do. All right, let's go to the next one. Tsunami is the most devastating. How to what extent is it true? So the true side is you must talk about tsunami. Okay, not true side. What do we talk about? Earthquake hazards. What have you learned? Okay, you have learned various earthquake hazards. You have learned ground shaking. You have learned liquefaction. You have also learned landslides, and the fourth one, tsunami. Okay, so the not true side, how many do you need? You need to check back the question. The question say most. So when you compare most, means you compare among at least 3 factors. Okay, so I have 1 factor here. Then here, I just need to pick any 2. Now, if you pick 3 factors, the marks will not be more than 2 factors. So this is where I mean by you can get to choose to show what you know. Okay, so for example, you forgot landslides. You need to remember ground shaking and liquefaction. Then you talk about these 2 lah. Okay, or if your friend forget liquefaction, they can talk about these 2. And if both of you, if you all do the same description, if you're able to explain and weigh properly, you will get the same marks. Okay, so this one, just pick 2. Okay, what to use in the explanation? Well, the question is devastating. So devastating means what? Devastating means a lot of destruction, deaths, and injuries. So this is what I must talk about. Okay, you must link it to that. Then conclusion logic. Well, you can talk about scale or impact. Okay, geographical scale. Usually impact and hazards is always usually geographical scale or time scale. Okay, sometimes you have causation, but most of the time it's geographical scale. This one we talk about in class already. Okay, tsunami, because it can go to regional scale, whereas the rest is all local scale. So tsunami is the most devastating one. All right, last one. Earthquakes impacts nature system more than human system. To what extent is it true? So the true side will be impacting nature system. Okay, so you must show me how earthquake impact nature system. Okay, then not true side will be the human system. Okay, then what do you need to talk about in the explanation? The further impacts. Okay, so that you can tell me which one impacts more. Okay, so this one probably you need to go by time scale, or you might need to go by geographical scale, or you can do causation also. Okay, so I hope you analyze and you have a better idea. Let's move on to your graded assignment. Okay, so let me analyze with you. So this one, after the video ends, you will spend the remaining time to quickly write out a good essay with the conclusion, and then you will submit to me at the end of the face-to-face lesson. Okay, so liquefaction causes greater disaster than tsunamis. How far do you agree? If you agree, it means that liquefaction is the one that caused disasters. Okay, if you disagree, it will be the tsunami. What must you show about both? Which one caused disasters? Okay, remember I told you don't use the exact word as the question for explanation, so you must break it down. What is a disaster? A disaster must have a lot of deaths and injuries, as well as destruction, property damage, all this. Okay, then conclusion logic, I give you a hint, use geographical scale. Which one affects a larger geographical scale? Okay, and then you will choose that side, whether you agree or disagree in the conclusion. Okay, so write down your essay. Remember, your detail should be about at least 3 points. Don't forget to include examples. You can find that in your textbook as well. Okay, all the best.